Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Leadership Void Podcast. I'm Enrique with my co-host Vince to bring you the best in our veteran, military spouse, and first responder community. And Vince will introduce today's guest.
Thanks, Enrique. Here we are again. And the first week of June is down, but guess what? What's up is this man right here. He is the CEO and founder of True Made Foods, all the way from Washington, D.C., Baltimore area. Welcome, Abe, to the show. Tell us first a little bit about you.
Oh, thanks. Hey, guys, thanks for having me. First off, this is great. I'm really honored to be here. So I really appreciate this. A little bit about me. I was a Navy Seahawk pilot, flew Lamps Bravos back when we had Bravos. Now that it's a Romeo. But I flew that for 8 years. I was stationed in Mayport, Florida, deployed a lot, got over 1,000 hours in that aircraft. Did my shore duty in England at the Joint Analysis Center, so part of US UCOM. So I got to see a whole different something there. That was crazy. And got to travel all over Europe for work and fun, and Africa, Middle East, things like that. And while I was over in England, I was able to did my executive MBA at the London Business School. So nights and weekends kind of work. And got out in 2008, which was a terrible decision. Think about it, right? And especially in London, which was like being it was like ground zero for the financial crisis, right? So, your MBA was now worth nothing. And I ended up pivoting and using my emerging market experience and, from working in the military. And I actually ended up taking a job in Bulgaria for a while because that's what we had to do. My wife, we had one kid. My wife was pregnant with a second. She moved in with my parents, who were in Massachusetts at the time. And she had my second kid was born in Massachusetts. And then I spent 6 months in Bulgaria, living in a $10 a night hotel room next to a factory, running a factory as a turnaround project for, so that was kind of like a post MBA kind of grad school, like the kind of stuff they can't teach you in school, like running a factory where nobody speaks English. And so that was interesting, and getting that profitable, turning that around. So we flipped that. And then I went from there to starting my own company for a while, which was I just started an LLC to help start working on emerging market projects and innovation. And from there, my wife and I decided it would be beneficial to move to the Middle East. So she got a job that had an opening in Doha, and so we moved there. And my projects were in places like Egypt and Ghana, and so it was a good location. Middle East was easy to get to, all these places, because I could fly to China, I could fly to Egypt easily. So I did all these emerging market projects, and I did a lot of projects in Doha too, like working on emerging the migrant problems with the way they were being treated, things like this. A lot of social impact stuff, agriculture, some website design. They really got into everything. So it was really exciting, cool time to be there too, because it was like 2010 during the Arab Spring, and a lot of my friends who were entrepreneurs in the Arab world were part of that. And then we moved back to the U.S. in 2013. A charity hired me to be kind of their in-house entrepreneur and help them launch products, social impact products from post-conflict areas. So I did a coffee from Uganda that we called Coexist Coffee. It was came from a cooperative of Jewish, Muslim, and Christian farmers that used to be fighting each other, and now we're working together to grow coffee together. And so that was a really great experience, going to Uganda and meeting with them and getting the coffee exported. But then unfortunately, the charity ran out of money, and so they let everybody go. And after I'd fallen in love with launching products and like food products and seeing what was happening in the food industry, so I was like, you know what, I'm going to start my own company at the time. And I was a little upset at the charity for running out of money right when the coffee was starting to do really well. So I was like, I'm going to do my own thing and start my own company. And that's when in 2015, I founded True Made Foods. So you have to be a little bit crazy or a little bit, emotionally distraught to start your own company. So it is not a rational decision by any means. And I think that's what happens. And then once you're in, as long as it's working, you stay on it. So we really struggled for the first few years trying to figure it out. I thought I knew what I was doing, and I just did not. Like, there are a lot of surprises in the food industry. Launching a food product is very hard. but 2018, 2019, it really started to take off, and we've been kind of scaling pretty strongly ever since. We're not out of the woods yet. Still a lot of growth to go, but it's we're on a much more solid foundation now. We've got so we do ketchup, barbecue sauces, and now we do mustards and hot sauces too. All natural products, no added sugar, no or low added sugar, all natural, no stevia, no monk fruit, no sucralose. We use only pureed fruits and vegetables as our sweeteners in our products. The way, this is the way your great grandma used to cook. And like, we're just kind of innovating by looking backwards, taking adjusting old recipes, making them better, bringing things forward. So it was really kind of a labor of love, and solving an old problem. Like, I started with the ketchup because I was trying to feed my kids healthy, and they were pouring ketchup all over their food. And we're not going to stop grilling out. Like, and that's the other thing is, like, I believe 100% eating really healthy, no sugar, lots of vegetables and things like that. But we love barbecue and we love cooking out, and I think those things should not be unhealthy. Right now, they're incredibly unhealthy for you. Barbecue in America is incredibly unhealthy, but barbecue shouldn't be. It didn't used to be. People who ate barbecue 50 years ago did not look like they do now, right? And didn't have diabetes and didn't have heart disease and all these problems. And it's because all this sugar seeped in, and now people are injecting their meats with sugar, and they're pouring sugar in the rubs, and then they're dumping high fructose corn syrup on top of the barbecue when they're done. And and barbecue and ketchup has more sugar than ice cream, ounce per ounce. Like, these things are just loaded with sugar. A tablespoon of ketchup, which is a serving, is 4 grams of sugar, and you're like, oh, it's only 4 grams. 4 grams is a teaspoon. That's a teaspoon of sugar. So imagine, like, would you take a scoop of sugar and pour it on your burger or your hot dog? Like, no, right? But that's what you're doing every time you do one squeeze of ketchup. So this was a big problem that I saw, like, with my kids with the ketchup, and I want them to eat healthy. So somebody gave me the idea of putting veggies in ketchup, and I was like, well, you could use the veggies to cut the sugar, because veggies are naturally sweet. People don't always realize that. So that's how we used to cook. My mom taught me to cook. She's Italian. I learned how to cook pasta sauce, like, before I could walk. Like, that's what we did in the house. And she said, only lazy Italians use sugar. Like, this is something that came in when Italians came to America, and Sicilians came to America, and they started figuring out all these shortcuts, and sugar was cheap. You could start putting these things in. And I started to think, okay, so, like, we use carrots in the pasta sauce to sweeten, to cut the acidity of the tomato. You could probably do that with ketchup too, or barbecue sauce. And that's what we did. And we started to realize too that, this problem with, like, pasta sauce, where American Italians started adding sugar to it. I mean, that's really almost everything post 1950s. Any meal, like, if it's Asian or African American, Southern cooking, that kind of stuff, like, it used to not have sugar. Sugar used to be expensive, hard to use. You wouldn't get it. And then, like, post World War II, it's cheap, it's readily available, and it started just getting in everything. And it's an easy hack, right? We're looking at my dad's side is much more the southern, like, from Blue Ray, Virginia, and, like, my great grandma's recipes on that side, her fried chicken didn't use any sugar in it, her collard greens didn't use any sugar in it, and things like that. But that was, like, from early 20th century. Like, she put sugar a lot in her cakes and her things like that, but not in the food, right? You saved it, right? So that's and I think if you go back far enough, you'll find that. And I think it's just, once people start putting sugar in things, they're worried that if they take it out, people won't like their cooking anymore, right? Because that sweetness is really easy. And we're trying to get away from that. We're trying to get back to real flavor and show people real flavor is real. That's also why in 2018, I partnered with Ed and Ryan Mitchell. Ed's a Hall of Fame barbecue pitmaster. He's in the National Barbecue Hall of Fame now, and in the Black Barbecue Hall of Fame in Brooklyn. And Ryan is his son, who's taken over the business, things like that. And these guys, they wanted to go back to, like, the old way of cooking, and they were really excited to partner with me because they realized Ed was diagnosed as pre-diabetic, and he realized that, like, him and his brothers were suffering from diseases that, like, their grandparents and great grandparents never had, right? And they realized it was the sugar that was sneaking into all their foods and all their recipes that didn't used to be there. once you start putting it in, you're afraid to take it out because you think people won't like it anymore, right? So we were trying to prove, so we started developing, we took their rubs and their barbecue sauces, and we've substituted things to make it, all natural and healthy again. And we're really excited by what's going on with that. So that's it. It's a great partnership. And they bring the barbecue chops to bring in, no pun intended, to really kind of change that aspect of it. And we're really hoping to turn barbecue around and allow people to eat barbecue and enjoy it, right? And so, because not knowing that you shouldn't be poisoning yourself to eat something that's so important to your family and such a great American tradition, right?
Thank you for the backdrop, and I've been just utterly amazed at your whole transition post service. And oh, by the way, Abe, I might have written you a -1 or 2 at Mayport, but anyway,
Oh yeah,
we'll talk about
that's
that
awesome.
at another day.
Yeah, that'd be great.
What a trajectory! Family moving abroad, gaining all the insights, and then finding your way to this business. But let's talk about the business now. Tell us about True Made Foods.
So we make the ketchup, barbecue sauces. We have mustards now, a couple hot sauces. Just launched these rubs. So these are brand new on our website. This is Ed Mitchell too. Ed is a veteran too. He was in Vietnam Army service. So another exciting thing. We're really excited about these rubs. These are all natural, no sugar added rubs. They're incredible. Like, I've always been kind of an anti-rub person because I always do my own spice mixes and things like this. But man, I'm addicted to these things. I use them all the time. Like, you can't get better. And most rubs out there are just made by some fool with a Traeger who thought he could come up with a rub, things like this. Like, this is generational knowledge. This is American history, just like our barbecue sauces. These are recipes that Ed's family has kind of passed down through the years and been kind of, each pitmaster has kind of adopted. They're from Wilson, North Carolina. So they've been doing the same type of whole hog barbecue since, they were working on the plantation and doing the tobacco farms, because that's where the whole hog barbecue tradition comes from. Tobacco farming, where you would do the hog during the crop to feed everybody who came together to pull the crop up and things like this. And their family's always been doing that, and they passed that on when they became sharecroppers and then small farmers, and then Ed, and then store owners. And then when Ed launched his first barbecue restaurant by accident back in the late 90s. So but this is, our goal as True Made Foods is to try to change this mindset that you don't have to, you have to sacrifice eating healthy to eat good food. And, so if you try our ketchup, or our mustards too, or our barbecue sauces, these are all natural products. It's the ketchup is tomato, apple, carrots, butternut squash, vinegar, salt, onion powder, allspice. That's it. So you're eating all whole, real foods without any added sugar. The ketchup's available nationally now. It's in CVS, it's in Kroger, Whole Foods, Sprouts, and most other SKU, wherever most grocery stores where you can shop and find. The ketchup is there. It's about 6,000 grocery stores nationwide. The barbecue sauces don't have as much, or the mustards don't have as much distribution yet, but you can find them on TrueMadeFoods.com or on Amazon, like that. So, and we're working to get those out there. So tell your local grocery store you want them.
Absolutely, Abe. 6,000 grocery stores. That's amazing, brother. So let's say that number again, and hopefully all over America soon, and even overseas. Let's bring it all the way through. You talked earlier about, you talked earlier about innovating by looking backwards. That's an awesome way to pivot and look at how to re-engineer what you're doing and giving back into the community. And also talked about social impact. So I'd love to know either one of these two questions. How do you give back to the community? Or please share about any entrepreneurship challenges or lessons learned with our audience today.
We try to give back to the community. We're still a very small business. We're still a pre-$10 million business. So there's not a lot of, donation type of things that we can do to give back, but we try to whenever we can. Donating our products is our easiest way to give back. The other thing that we do is we do events on a regular basis where we try to do the cooking and food to help sponsor events and things like that. Like, so for example, sometimes they're very small, sometimes they're bigger. And in those types of events, we try to add education. And our goal is that's our real goal, is to kind of drive more, be a vehicle for more education so that people can eat healthier at home without having to sacrifice anything. For example, we'll be doing, my oldest son has there's a 7v7 football tournament that his high school is hosting coming up next weekend. And so I'm going to be doing all, like 30 teams will be there. I'll be doing all the food and the concessions for that. And you trying to use that also as a platform to educate people that, you don't have to, that you can eat amazing food and be healthy and just make, smaller, smarter decisions. Because, we've had this, you have that problem. Like if you've all been to high school events and things like this, like the Booster Club usually just runs to Costco and buys the cheapest stuff possible. And it's all soda and candy. And like, you're at an athletic event, right, where you're trying to encourage kids to be healthy, and it's all junk food that's being sold left and right. And so, but like you can still buy great stuff, even if it's a smaller thing, like even just a Kind bar instead of a candy bar, right, is a step in the right direction. And so that's the kind of thing we're kind of pushing towards, is like moving people towards that. And then obviously we would have our condiments out there and real burgers and stuff like that. We are trying to work on that education piece and help translate people. So another step that we're doing is trying to start creating brochures that we can give out, help people with basic nutrition guidance, because a lot of people, it's very confusing out there. Doctors won't always tell you everything. It's changing all the time. Social media is completely confusing, and the media landscape gets it wrong a lot too as well. So there's got to be a lot of focus, and I think people are just now starting to realize how bad sugar is. And really our focus is the fact that sugar is probably the worst thing that's out there. It's like the 80-20, right? Good leadership principle is always knowing that, like, that a priori thing that we got taught in business school, which is like that, 80% of your profits come from 20% of your customers, like that. Like there's always that ratio. And when you're in the military, you always realize that like 20% of your people probably on your team do 80% of the work, and another 20% cause 80% of the problems, right? And it's like, but like that ratio really works really well. I feel like if you're trying to get healthier, you're trying to feed your kids healthier, cutting out added sugars is that 80-20. It's that first big step. There's so much other stuff out there, like people going vegan and things like this, which is fine. I don't have a problem. We don't have a problem with veganism, but plant-based is not the panacea that it's made out to be. Like going no sugar is definitely, and you don't have to go full keto or go full paleo either. Like it's really just getting rid of the highly processed foods, junk foods and carbs. There's so much, bad information and crazy marketing stuff out there. Like anytime you see people pushing a keto diet or a vegan diet, and they're always like, oh, I used to eat, Chick-fil-A every week or McDonald's twice a week and things like this, and now I'm just eating, lentils and da-da-da. It's really not that they went vegan or not that they went keto. It's the fact that they cut out the highly processed foods that are loaded with sugar and went to an all natural whole food kind of diet. That's the key. And I think so if you're using like whole real ingredients and you're buying things with whole real ingredients, that's really what you want to be looking for more than anything else. And I think that's communication that gets lost out there. And it confuses people. And I think that's the kind of thing that we're trying to push forward. And realize like certain things like stevia, for example, natural sweetener it's better for you than sugar. It's still not good for you. It's kind of like going to vaping from smoking. And you like stevia, everybody's like, oh, stevia comes from a leaf. Like, yeah, but it's not a leaf. Nobody's putting leaves in the food, right? It's a molecule that's been stripped out of a leaf that's been highly processed. And that's the problem with our diets. And that's the problem that we're seeing. Just like sugar is a highly refined food, right? It starts out as a plant and it gets down to a single atom with two molecules, a glucose and a fructose molecule. Like that's the challenge with our diet that we're looking at. Like high fructose corn syrup comes from corn, but doesn't resemble corn at all, right? It's been pulled out. It's just the fructose that you're pulling out of the corn. Just the problem with like corn is good for you. High fructose corn syrup is bad for you. Like apples are good for you. Apple juice is bad for you because you're just, again, apple juice is just the fructose. You're just taking that fructose out. And, it's supposed to be God made when he made the poison, like the fructose, he wrapped it in the antidote, which is the fiber and all the nutrients in the apple. And so that's how your body's supposed to eat it. So that's how we're trying to like communicate with people, trying to help people out with that. And it's challenging because like we really don't have the marketing budget to go full out and like buy influencers and get them to start, saying our thing. And so we have to try to kind of do it little by little, small events by small events, and just on our small platform, and hopefully kind of ride the wind. And what we're hoping as a business is all about timing. So we're hoping we're riding that right timing so that we're saying the same thing that the right people are saying, getting around that.
Good thing you ran into these two influencers.
So I'm
to
talking
get
about
the message out. Hey, and in a world of misinformation, it's true. The battle is even stiffer when you're talking about trying to get folks to learn what it really does make. Now, I bet the people listening didn't know they were getting a chemistry lesson today, but I tell you, but it's important. It's important to understand those chemical drawouts and how everything is being used. Now, you mentioned earlier pre 10 million, and I'm like, what? Any day for me in the millions is a great day. But so you mentioned that. So what's on the horizon for True Made Foods now that you're continuing to expand and get other partners and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, it's growth is key for us. Like we are as a consumer product company, really, you say like doing a couple $1 million in revenue sounds great to most businesses, but as a consumer product company, it's not great. Like, because we're competing against $1 billion businesses. Like, and if you think about like how many people are buying your product at that level, you have to sell a lot of product to really start to get profitable and really make it work. And I think that's a big mistake that most people go into as a consumer product. Thinking about consumer product, they think you can make money right away because you're selling your product, make profit. If you're planning to sell through stores, there was a small period of time, like in the early 2010s, when you could really be profitable online or something like that. Nowadays, space is so crowded, ROIs are really low on marketing that it's really, really hard to grow a business online and be profitable, at least for food, because, the margins on, food product are much smaller than say, if you're selling, larger like electronics or something like that, or clothing, those have larger margins that can absorb more marketing. You're making like $1 like on every product you sell, like up every ketchup bottle or something like that. So that's a lot of bottles that you got to sell to really start creating enough money to cover salaries, to cover marketing expenses, all that stuff. And sales in grocery stores, very expensive. People don't realize you don't make money the first year or two that you're in that grocery store, because there's slotting fees, there's promotion fees, all these things that the grocery store wants out of you just to be on the shelf. And so it's really, really hard to get into. You got to raise some money, you got to have some capital to buffer, that first type of that first year or two getting into there. So really, really difficult. But we're at that stage now where we're raising money, and we're trying to bring in more investors so that we can keep expanding, because every time we raise more money, then we can go into new stores. So our goal is to try to get more stores going, get the products in more stores, more products in the existing stores that we're in, and also kind of growing our online business and food service business at the same time. So we're trying to branching out into every channel to cover those costs and the danger is not letting ourselves get spread too thin, right? You want to stay focused. You want to try and capture as much sales channel as you can, but you don't want to get spread too thin. So it's a delicate balance that you want to do. So you don't want to we launch new rubs, new products that we needed to have, but we don't want to get too far out. Like we already have kind of too many products right now for the size of our business. And that's the nature of the beast for a condiment company, because every single one sells slow, right? You only buying barbecue sauce a couple times a year. You're only buying ketchup a couple times a year. So we need to capture more sales per household. So having more products help. But if we start adding new products every couple of months, then your working capital gets stretched out, your marketing budget gets stretched out, and you're just really not doing anything well, right? At the end of the day, so as a business, when you're running business and from a leadership standpoint, one of the things as a leadership standpoint is you have to just kill good ideas all the time. You want to kill that good idea fairy all the time, because there's tons of good ideas of things that you could do. But like, if you stretch yourself too thin and you just don't focus on doing one thing really, really well, you're going to end up in trouble, right? Because then you're just going to do a lot of things really badly. And that doesn't get you anywhere.
Absolutely. But, hopefully soon you all will be definitely taking it to the next level, growth and expanding, as you mentioned. But guess what? In Florida, we barbecue every day, 24/7. So just want to put that out there.
That's the benefit. Yeah.
Yes, sir. And talking about leadership now, and I think one component of being a great leader is having that nutritional guidance you just shared, because you as a great leader have to be in a healthy, fit mind, body, and soul. So that's one tactic right there to keep your body healthy as a leader. But you yourself, Abe, what do you do to sharpen your skill sets that aid you to thrive in your professional life?
One thing that helped me, COVID actually helped me in a little bit, because I was pre-COVID, 2019, I was just working myself to death. I was on the road all the time. I was traveling left and right. I would work out early in the morning. So I'd be getting up to try to get in the gym at 5 a.m. so I didn't waste any time, things like that. And I wasn't getting any sleep. And I was just driving myself down, and I think, when COVID hit and I had to stop traveling and stop going to the gym at 5 a.m, I just could work out at home and that kind of stuff. Like, that changed a lot, and that helped me kind of like reset and rebalance. And so I think that's important, is to realize, like, you can't push yourself too far and too hard. I think we did that a lot in the military too, and the problem is then you're like strained out, and you're making bad decisions. You're making rush decisions. You really don't have that clear mind choice, and like you'll get into partnerships that are bad. You'll get influenced by people that are, you don't want to get influenced by, because your body's constantly under stress. And they've shown again and again that the more stress your body, like, they've always shown that, like, people have trouble making good decisions late at night. Whether it's about nutrition or anything like that, you're more likely to succumb to influence or to any type of temptation late at night when you're tired, or you've been worn out, or you're mentally exhausted from the day, because you lose that resistance or resilience, like, as you get exhausted. And I think it's important to keep that up and keep yourself fresh all the time, and realizing that, like, nobody. And I think there's a really good stuff going around about this, like, anti-hustle culture on social media now, because we were really bought into that hustle culture early on in the 2000s and stuff like that, in 2010s. And, nobody can work 12 hours a day. Anybody says they're working 60 hours a week, they're not working 60 hours a week. Maybe they're at an office 60 hours a week, but they're not doing 60 hours of work, like, because your brain burns out. Doesn't matter who you are, what top shape you're in, like, you are burning out at some point. And so you're not making good decisions, you're being inefficient with your work, things like this. So what I've found is just being extremely efficient for short periods of time, and getting in, 6 to 8 hours of really, really good work in a day is, much more productive, and getting more about it's not how many hours you work, it's about what you get done, right? And it's like that, what you're producing, like that, how much you're moving the ball forward, and being able to do that well and clearly. If you're writing bad emails late at night that people don't understand because you can't think coherently, you just push that timeline out for everything, or maybe you upset somebody, in an important relationship because you wrote a rushed email. Like, sometimes it's better just to sit and think about things, and it's not gonna go away. You're not going to lose this opportunity, over like 12 hours. Right. So, I think taking care of yourself, it's just really, really important. And finding that balance of, work life, understanding the family, not sacrificing the family, things like that, because you can't get that back. You screw up your family, you're done. Right. So, so I think that is really important too. And also, like, if you're spending more time with your kids and stuff like that on a regular basis, it's just like the business. Like, if you're spending more time on the business on important things, there's less chance that something's going to blow up and cause a real problem. And same thing with your family. Like if you're spending time with your kids on a regular basis and you can understand and stop problems early before all of a sudden it becomes a huge problem. Like, you know, if you're ignoring your kids for months at a time, then all of a sudden there's going to be some huge problem at school. And, you know, next thing you know, they're failing out of something and you had no idea. Right. So, yeah. And then that creates a bigger problem that takes up more of your time like this. It's like, you know, I think like that was key in the military too, right? Like you want to stay on top of the aircraft maintenance or whatever, so that something doesn't become a huge problem down the road. And same with your training and things like that, keeping everybody up to speed so that, you know, you're not all of a sudden in a situation where you can't do anything and everything has to shut down, or you have a safety stand down.
Great points there. And your final point, I was listening to you and I was thinking about the whole flight not recommended stamp. It's so good to have a forecaster tell you, hey, I understand you want to do these things, but we have a 200-foot ceiling right now that you're just not going to go through. So,
right.
and it's always important to have people on our corner, on our side, to keep us safe, right? And a lot in entrepreneurship, there's a lot of things that are demanding, and they will demand from you things that you probably did not consider. So as you mentioned, the military, you've been in entrepreneurship for quite a while in the business world with your MBA and executing that. What advice did you receive that you would like to pass on to an emerging leader today that benefited you in your lifetime?
You know, I mean, I think there are some things from flight school that we learned that have just like really applied to everything, especially for being an entrepreneur. Like, you know, when you're a pilot and you're in flight school, they're trying to teach you how to prioritize in emergencies. When everything's coming at you really fast and really hard, is to really focus on the most important things and like just kind of then checklist off after that. And I think that really helps a lot when you're an entrepreneur because everything's coming at you at a million miles a minute and like you can't do everything. You just can't. Right. And so you have to prioritize the most important things. And like, so one of the things I always taught, it was like ANC, like aviate, navigate, communicate. When you're in the cockpit in an emergency, like, you know, keep the aircraft in the air, figure out where you're going, and then you can talk on the radio, right? Things like that, and communicate what's going on. So it's the same thing with your, you know, you're running a business, you know, keep that aircraft in the air, keep the business going. Like, what are the most important things? It's sales, cash flow, that kind of stuff. That's what keeps the business going. Safety, quality, you know, those kinds of things. Then figure out the strategy, where you're going, what to do next, and then worry about marketing and communication and things like that last, because those are really kind of the nice to haves kind of things that will help grow the business in the long term. So, you know, you have to prioritize these things. The other thing that they always said too was like for fixed wing, it was when you're doing primary fixed wing, it was, you know, airspeed is life and altitude is life insurance. And with the business, I found that sales is life and cash is life insurance, right? So if you have lots of cash, you can take risks. You know, you can do something more dangerous in your business. You can do a riskier marketing. You can launch a new product, kind of thing. Those are risky things to do in your business, and you can do that when you have a lot of cash. If you don't have a lot of cash, you can't do those things. Like, you got to say no to those things, because one mess up, one screw up with a new product launch or something like that, you just wasted all that cash. Or a bad marketing decision that didn't result in new sales, you just wasted all that cash, and boom, you know, you're out of business. And the number one reason companies go out of business is that they're not profitable, is because they don't have cash. It's working capital. You know, they don't have the cash to cover the bills and keep things going. So that's, you really got to, being focused on cash flow and being focused on maintaining your cash and understanding where you're going to be in 6 months is really important. It sucks and it's hard, but you know, that's got to be, as the owner of the business, that's got to be your number one focus all the time. So
Absolutely. You know, priorities are super key, as you mentioned. You learned a lot from flight school, giving us those pearls of wisdom, you know, aviate, navigate, and communicate, you know, and talk about airspeed. You need that cash flow, folks. So great advice to emerging leaders. Now, Abe, we'd love to know, what's your most memorable aha leadership moment you'd love to share with our audience today?
it was actually realizing that yeah, I could fire people, you know. So I think one of the challenges that military people have getting out and starting your own business or being in the civilian sector is we fight through, because we're so used to having to just deal with whatever problems are set. You know, you don't have that choice of firing people when you're in the military or things like that. And sometimes as a leader, you are seen as, if you're giving up on somebody, like that's a failure as a leader, right? You're supposed to mentor them until, you know, there's just nothing else you can do. Like it's completely exhaustive. If you're running your own business, you can't do that. And so I think that's one leadership lesson from the military, that it does not help in business, like especially as a startup, especially as a small business. Like a bad employee can really just kill, or a bad contractor or a partner can really kill your business. And you need to be able to let go of people quickly and learn that, and like see the red flags and walk away as soon as you see a red flag, and don't try to mentor them or help them or try to, you know, help things through, because you know, that's not your job anymore. Your job is to take care of the business and to protect your other employees or your other partners and things like that, you know, and not let this one person bring the entire business down, or one partner bring the entire business down. And so, you know, I think that's an important piece to learn. That was my aha. Like I had an early co-founder who I had to let go within the first year of starting this business. They were just a disaster, like from the get-go. And I just kept trying to work with them and make it work, because I want, you know, and, you know, finally, you know, I had to be like, okay, let's bite the bullet. It was hard. It would have been easier. It's always easier the earlier you do it. You know, it takes, the longer you wait, the harder it's going to be at any given time. But you know, at the time, I thought we were, you know, 1 year into the business, we were barely making any money, but I thought we had done so much, right? And really, we weren't even close to being a real business yet. So it really was, you gotta realize that there's always, it's never too late, and you can, and the earlier you do it, the better. And sometimes you got to rip that Band-Aid off and realize, you know, it's not your job to, you know, be their psychologist, right? And help them with stuff like anymore. Like as a leader in the military, you kind of have to do that kind of stuff with your people, things like this. And you know, out in the real world, at least if you're a small business, like you can't do that anymore. You can't afford that. So
Yeah, they say hire quick and fire fast.
yes, exactly. Yeah.
But you know,
Hire slow and fire
yeah,
fast, right?
yeah,
Yeah, that's
exactly,
it.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah,
And so,
hire slow.
and there's some wisdom behind that, because it will bring some changes down the road. And we're talking about changes, we're talking about challenges, something like an employee or a team member or something like that that is affecting you. So, what certain strategies do you use with your company, with your team, to deal with those times of change and challenge?
I mean, like we're always going through times of change and challenge. As a startup, you know, I over communicate, you know, a little bit, you know, just trying to make sure everybody's being transparent about things. You staying positive, but always staying positive, staying on mission, staying on message, but like still communicating that there are these challenges that we have to overcome, and these are major problems, you know, that we need to fix going forward. And here's what we, you know, trying to be like, here's what the things that we can do to break that. And you know, also getting input, meaning like what else can we do, like engaging everybody in the decision, so there's ownership all the way through. As a startup, as a small business, like where we really have less than 5 people, you know, going through this, like you need to have everybody's kind of buy-in on everything, so that everybody feels like they're part of it. Everybody has ownership, because otherwise, like, why would they go through this craziness, right? To do that, you know, it's a better mentality. Early stage employees at your startup need to feel ownership of the company too, or otherwise they won't put up with they won't do the work, and they won't put up with the crap, because it's a harder job for less money at a startup, right? And so the thing that keeps people there is like the ownership and the feeling like they're building something better. So both from a financial perspective, like for options, employee options and things like that, and also just like a decision making, and like bringing them into key decisions is key. I think that's important when you're trying to make it through difficult times like that.
No, absolutely. Especially as a small business, creating that culture and having that buy-in from everybody and over communicated. And you're the face of the company, right? So being positive, as you mentioned, some great advice, some great nutritional guidance throughout this podcast. It's all about today, true made foods. So, Abe, tell us how to get a hold of you. And that's our audience because I'm one of them now. Want to get a hold of True Made Foods. So how do we get a hold of that? Either your company or you.
If you want to reach out to me, LinkedIn is really easy. I'm the only Abraham Kamarck in the entire world. Like nobody else has my name. So if you put it into LinkedIn, it should pop up, right? No confusion there. You can also just go to truemadefoods.com, and if you fill out the contact page, I'll see that as well. The form on the contact us page. So those are the two easiest ways to do that. Then also, reaching out to us through Instagram DM or on TikTok DM or something like that too. Those are the two social media platforms we're most active on.
Well, folks, we're going to have that as part of the show notes and video so you can get a hold of Abe and his company. And if you want to get a hold of us at the Leadership Void Podcast, the leadershipvoid@gmail.com is where you'll send that correspondence. If you want a leadership topic covered, or you want Vince and I to delve into another great guest, and you like to suggest that, we'd love to see that by those means.
Yes, absolutely. And hey, today is all about Abe and all about true made food. So we appreciate all the time you took out of your busy schedule to tell us about the great value add you bring into our bodies and our nutrition. So thank you for keeping us healthy, my man. And talk about who keeps us healthy is our sponsors. Our sponsors is VEI, Triple Nickel, and FAVOB. We thank them too. So, but today, Abe, we wish you the best in your future endeavors and Godspeed.
Thank you all for having me. Really appreciate this. So thank you.